Now, focusing on the nation's commercial nerve center, we're talking about Lagos State. It is the #1 foreign investment destination. Now, on Monday, the governor swore in a 36-man team of 23 commissioners, but 37, I beg your pardon, 23 commissioners and 14 special advisors with a mandate to, among other things, develop an ingenious transport system, create jobs and attract investments to the state. Now, apart from being the #1 foreign investment destination, Lagos is one of the world's fastest growing cosmopolitan cities, the 5th largest economy in the world, accounting for almost $200 billion of Nigeria's $510 billion GDP, with the highest per capita income. That's the focus on. We're focusing on the strategic state with Femi Dagunro, who is the chief strategist, Westphalia Resources, a company focused, among other things, on providing guidelines on government regulations. He's also the past president of the Nigeria-German Business Group in Germany. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for coming in.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
So I know you listened to the conversation that I had with Bosin, and you were quite excited when you came into the studio. Now, looking at this 37-man list, what are your thoughts?
Like I said before the session begins, and this is not a strange. It's not a strange news the way we're looking at it, because, like he said, Lagos State has a Lagos State Development Plan since 2013. And if you look at most of the things that has been going on, even during Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he has planned a couple of things. And it's just for other governors, to just follow up. It's a follow-up thing. What Fashola has done would be was a follow-up to what Asiwaju Tinubu did. And now what Ambode is going to do is just a follow-up to Fashola's program as well. So that is why you have this Lagos State Development Plan, which will take us to 2025. So most of these things we're going to discuss, they have it under 4 pillars, they call it, the 4 pillars of this development plan. That is economic development plan, infrastructure, social development, and sustainable environment as well. So those are the areas that already we have a master plan for that. So it's just to continue to develop it. But now you have a governor who said, listen, I'm going to do it in my own way, and I'm going to add, a face to it. And this face is going to be the face you guys will like. But I'm going to still do what I have to do.
Now, looking at those strategic aspects, those 4 pillars now, for instance, the governor has asked that they begin to focus on, growing the city more than we already have it. Now, we have a population in Lagos of over 20 million people and growing, and it's surrounded by other states that, come into Lagos to get business done, Ogun State, Ekiti, Ondo, and the rest of it. Now, looking at the transport system, let's start from that one, because that's the very critical part of getting investments into the state. What are your thoughts? We're looking at a transport system where we have the BRT buses and, of course, the monolight rail running from Mile 2 all the way to Badagry. That's supposed to help grow businesses in the state. But how quickly do you think that they can finish this project, especially the monolight rail, and get things on track?
Well, this project is supposed to be completed at the end of this year. But I'm afraid this might not be the case, But looking at the adjoining states, you will discover that this interstate carriageway, this is a federal government issue. The state itself cannot just decide that, listen, I'm going to start constructing the road between Lagos and Shagamu, and Lagos and Ibadan, Lagos and Abeokuta. This is not something that is possible for the state to do, even if they have the interest in doing it. You have seen it before that in some cases when the state begins to do some of this and they don't have their fund back from the federal government. But we are hoping that with the new administration of Muhammadu Buhari, things will change. I mean, that is what one is expecting in terms of that. But this interstate carriageway, it has to be a federal government thing. And that is why, but coming to your studio, I was surprised that even at that junction at the former toll gate, you have a park and ride. From that place, people park their car and take the BRT to Lagos. So if you have same thing, that you have a park and ride at a point at that junction there, and people can park their car and take a trip to Ibadan, to Shagamu, that would be a good thing to be considered. So now, if you look at the waterways, I think another thing we have to consider is the waterways. We have to manage the waterways well. And this would be a very good opportunity for the state to begin to look into that waterways as a means of good transportation that will help the people of the state and beyond. On those states, they can just come to the waterways to Lagos State. Other states too can come through the waterway. So we have to look at that carefully. And I believe that with the state, you are talking about 20 million. We're expecting about 7% or maybe more before 2025. So this state is already growing beyond what we're looking at. And more people will come. As long as they see that the state is prosperous, as long as they see that all things are working well, people will still come in. So there will be more to do. The only thing I'm looking at is this: how far can we go? How faster can we go? The monorail, the government is supposed to provide the basic infrastructure. That means they will construct the rail, the roads, and whatever, and then private partnership will be involved in sourcing for the monorails, and you have this H5, H6 kind of a monorail or cars that is being constructed, or they are picking up from, or they are buying from Canada. So all these things have been planned, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think some time ago, Fashola was saying that these things would have been done faster than we expected, but because of litigations here and there. So these are the things that the community or the people of the state have to be educated and have to be informed. So most of these things you state, the states have to do. I think there should be a lot of enlightenment in actualizing most of these plans. There's no point if we have all these development plans and we are not enlightening our people on the goals and the ways we have to achieve it. This is one critical thing we have to do. At the local level, we have to begin to enlighten our people on what the state government.
We're talking about investments and influx of it coming into Nigeria, into Lagos, and already Lagos is the #1 foreign investment destination. And there have been issues with regards housing. And so we've got a housing commissioner who is going to be coming in and supposed to continue with the housing policies that were started up by the previous administration. But in terms of those houses now, what should now be the focus? Should there be now an introduction of more PPPs? Or should the government continue, for instance, with the Lagos Home projects that it started already?
It's both. The Lagos state government has to continue its own part, and the private investors have to do their own bit. If you collaborate with the private investors,
that's providing for the masses now, not just the particular.
That's what I mean. Sector. I mean, people have been saying things that look. If you say you are providing houses for the masses, how do you expect a common man in court to afford a house for 40 million or 20 million or something like that? But we have to look at it. If you collaborate, the government should collaborate with the private sector. I mean, they will be able to come up with this low-cost housing, because most times you call it low-cost housing. It's not really low cost. The same price of bags of cement and sand and blocks and bricks, and these are the prices that these government people have to buy as well, like the private sector. So it's not really low cost in that sense. But now if the government has to expand beyond the metropolitan. I mean, if you go to somewhere, going to Igbogbo, after Ikorodu, you see these kind of houses that are being built there. We have to expand beyond just the metropolitan. But unfortunately, the infrastructures have to be improved. That's number one. I mean, you have housing development coming up in all other areas of Lagos State, Badagry, Ekpe, even in Talking area and all those places. But most people do not know, or most people don't want to go as far as that, because they will tell you, listen, from Ikorodu to my 12, there's a problem. And don't forget, this transportation issue is another thing. The government has started it, and it's almost completed, this my 12 Ikorodu. So once we complete that road, you have more people going into that part of the state. Now Badagry is another area where you have to consider. And another thing is this: once the government begins to clarify a lot of things, excuse me, about these C of O thing, people will be more comfortable. Then you have to bring in the mortgage bankers. The mortgage bankers have to be involved. I mean, if you have to say, listen, I'm going to build a house and you are giving me 25 years to pay back, that would be interesting to me. I mean, a young man who has just started a job, I mean, just maybe 25-year-old, and if you tell him 25 years to come, you're going to own your house, he will just be 50. So he will retire comfortably well and have a house of his own. So these are the things that the government has to. There's no way the government can do it alone, all over the world. So the government has to really have a partnership with the private sector, no doubt.
Talking about having businesses come in and the rest of it, we talked about issues of taxation.
Right.
There's been some reports that a lot of businesses are leaving Lagos and going to neighboring states like Ogun State and the rest of it because of high taxes. Mm. So that's another thing that the government should begin to look at. But in terms of looking at it in a very objective way, where it doesn't seem as if they're cutting off their nose to spite their own face, how should they be going about this particular issue?
The issue of taxation will always come up. But I tell you what, there's nothing you can do about people moving from Lagos to another state. Even in Germany, you see that people, even in Europe, Central Europe, they're now moving to other places. I mean, they're going to, Tajikistan and wherever. In those days, they will move from Germany to Poland because they say that's Eastern Europe. Now people are moving beyond even Poland. I mean, manufacturers will always want a place where they can cut their costs, no doubt about that. So, but taxation, look at the population we are talking about in Lagos State. This population is huge. So there will be money, IGR, you have to develop something. You cannot continue with all these massive projects without having a source of income. So despite that, you still have to look at it. But I think, like I said, what the people want to know is this: how are you spending my money? If you're collecting this so much from the people, then how you have to justify it. And the only way to justify it is just to enlighten the people. When a local government will stand up, a local government will just come on the road and say, listen, I want to take radio and television levy or tax or something. And people are not aware of it, that, look, there is even a role for the local government to start taking that. Most people do not know that you have to buy your TV and pay for it. I tell you what, in some countries like in Germany, for instance, people began to say, look, if I buy a laptop and you want to come and charge me, because there should be a tax on that laptop, what the government did was just to collaborate that before you even sell that laptop, add these taxes to it. So they are collecting it from the source. You don't even have to bother. But in a case, the government will tell you for every laptop you buy, you have to pay tax even on your laptop. So it's not a strange thing, actually, but you have to enlighten the people to say, listen, you need to pay this because we have to get this thing done. But in a situation where you are not enlightening the people, or the people just come out and say, look, we are the agent for this local government. And in some cases, the government does not even know. Some bunch of people just come out and say, we are collecting this, and they block the road. So that is something that we have to really avoid. And that is why the government said it's going to have a human face, to add a human face to this. I mean,
and there should be improved monitoring of all of these various agencies.
Exactly, the monitoring aspect of it, the execution of it. If you say you want to begin to collect this, let the people be aware that, listen, if you have a radio and TV, you have to pay for this. Educate them. I mean, in those days, if you remember, you know that you have these Enlightenment program. People have microphones or megaphones on their buses. They go around to tell the people what the government is doing, and the people will understand that in their own language. Most of these things you do in the English language, some people don't even understand it. So if you begin to tell the people in the community in their own language, I believe this tax issue, and if you feel aggrieved, let there be a center whereby you can report, and this will be looked into. There's no way people will feel aggrieved by certain programs of the government, but let that be a center whereby you can just sit down with people and the customer service will take it from there. And I think that should be important for the government to take note.
Yeah, the government also talked about the fact that they want to create more jobs. We've seen that in the past administration, we had more jobs created, especially with regards to keeping the state clean. But much more can be done, but how and where?
Creating jobs will always be an issue all over the world. You have unemployment all over the world. And creating jobs will always come from all these sectors we have talked about. The good thing that I found this government doing, I mean, is having this office for foreign investors, and foreign investors coming in, they have an office where they can go. At that point in time, where a foreign investor is coming in, you have a person or a service person that will guide you through all these processes. There are so many processes to go through if you want to set up a company in this country. And until we begin to make things a little bit more comfortable for people who are coming to invest in this country, because it is through this investment that you can create more jobs.
Yeah, overseas, there's actually a special advisor on overseas affairs and investment.
Great. Overseas affairs and investment. That's a good thing Lagos State has done. I tell you what, it is not for all the states in Nigeria to depend on Nigeria Investment Promotion Council. I have nothing against them, but each state should be able to, take the action on their own. I mean, if you have that opportunity, whereby I know that a couple of people are coming from Germany, and I know some companies are already coming back to Nigeria, setting up. They were here before, and they're coming back again. They've come back again. They've met the governor, and France is coming in. Other countries are coming in because they know there will be an office whereby we can really go there. But we still have to simplify this, and because there's no point if you want to register a company, it takes you about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, even 6 months to register a company and to set up. So now the government has said among these 4 pillars that we are going to have, an incubator for new startups. We're going to have industrial parks. We are going to have all these things, agricultural or agro-business parks and all that. So if you now follow up this Lagos State Development Plan, like I said, you will discover that things will be a lot more easier. And it is through this process you have to begin to think of how to create jobs. Your job cannot be created if there are no investment. So until we have good investment before we can create jobs.
Well, it's just early days yet. The commissioners are just taking over the office. So let's see how it goes for them. And we'll keep our eye on that. The
good thing is that Lagos State trying its hands on the oil. That's a good thing for Lagos State. And we should expect that more jobs will be created through that. And I mean, the adjoining communities and every other place that in Lagos State, the people in Lagos State will be smiling. Very soon, they will smile more than what they are having right now. It might be difficult.
I like to keep my fingers crossed on that.
It might be difficult, though. Let's not forget there will be challenges. Let's not forget about that. There will be challenges, but it's too early, like you said, for us to begin to, let's give them a chance.
Let's give them a chance.
The best is yet to come.
Well, Femi Dagunro, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
This morning, Femi Dagunro is a chief strategist at Westphalia Resources, a company focused, among other things, on providing guidelines on government regulations. Business Morning continues after this. Please join us again.